Okay, so now let's move on to the first question. Okay, remember all the points that I've told you earlier. What do we do in addition and subtraction, and what do we do in multiplication and division? Now suppose this is our first question. 4p times 2p times p. Right? Now you've got a multiplication expression. Now what I prefer you to do is that separate the numbers, all right, on the left hand side. How many numbers are there? 4 times 2 times 1, right? You don't have to write 1. And if you want to, you can. All right? All the numbers are right in front of you, so keep it aside. And then bring all the letters together. P. Now, you are not going to put a multiply in between the letters, right? So you're going to put a P dot P dot P. Right? This is what you're going to do. The best way is now, what you're going to do is underline. First, you're going to separate the numbers, right? And 1 from here. 4 times 2 times 1. Then you separate the alphabets. Why do you need to underline? You should have 2-3 colors with you at all times. Why you need to underline is so that you do not miss out any letter or any number. So once you've underlined, you know that you've covered up all the letters and all the numbers, right? The only difference is that you're not going to put a multiply sign in between the letters. Okay, so now we're going to multiply the numbers first. And now this is times p dot p dot p means p multiplied by p multiplied by p. So p exists how many times? How many times does it occur? 3 times. So it goes as a power 3. All right? P is 3 times. So this will be your answer, p cube. And you cannot leave your answer with a multiplication sign in between. So it becomes 8 times p means 8p cube. This is your final answer. All right? So once again, when you write down the expression, then see whether it's a plus or a multiply. Okay? First of all, see whether it's a plus or a multiply. If it's a multiply, then you are going to separate the numbers and separate the letters. All right? How will you do that? By underlining. You underline the numbers first, write it down, then underline the letters, and then write them down. And then this becomes very clear, very easy to put it down in this way. All right? We'll do another one. For example, if we have an a squared times b. Now this is a question. And the question, of course, is going to give you a multiply sign in between the letters and the numbers. But what will you do when you start solving? When you start solving, you're going to underline them. Now, a square exists only one time, right? So you're going to copy it down as a squared. Okay? Multiply by, now we have no numbers, so we are going to just write down the letters. Now this becomes b dot b, right? B dot b. Okay? B dot b. I can use a separate color for this, b dot b. So now I've underlined all, I'm not missing out any term. Now this stays as it is because this is only once, multiplied by b dot b. B occurs how many times? 2 times. Right? You can now see how it looks. It looks like a square x b square, right? So actually here also you should have put a dot in between the letters. we should have put a dot in between the letters. The multiply sign is represented as a dot. So this would have been a better way to write down a squared dot b dot b. All right? So avoid doing it in this way. Avoid doing it in this way. Okay? I've done it for you just to show you that how it looks like. It can get confusing when you have bigger sums. All right? And when there are x's involved in those expressions. Now you don't have any x as a letter over here. There's just a multiply sign here, right? Sometimes you might have an x or a y, all of those alphabets included. So now your answer becomes a square dot. Now you're going to solve these two, right? When you're solving these two, you can also underline them. Underline the b's, so it becomes b squared. So the answer is a square b square. You cannot leave your answer in the form of a dot because this still means a multiply sign, right? You have to come back to your answer. So this is your answer to this expression. Okay, we'll do 3-4 more sums so it becomes clearer to you. Okay, so now we have 18x times 9y times 3z. Right? Now see how the x and the times look like, right? They're quite similar, right? That is why in between the letters we do not write down the multiply sign. But now it's a number and the letter, so it's all right. So now for multiplication, what do? As I said earlier, that you separate the numbers and separate the letters. All right? So I'm separating the numbers. And how many numbers are there? There are 3 numbers, 18, 9, and 3. So I am going to write them on the left side. 18 times 9 times 3. Right? And now I'm going to separate the alphabets. X, Y, and Z. Right? So multiply by, they're all being multiplied. Multiply by X dot Y dot Z. All right? In between the letters, we do not put the multiplication sign. Avoid it. It's not going to be wrong, but avoid. Okay? So now we are going to solve these. Now you can solve all together, or as I said earlier, 2 by 2, it's better and easier to calculate. So 18 nines are, carry 7 here, so it becomes 162 times, follow down the rest, times 3 times x dot y dot z. Right? You can copy it down. Now time to solve these two. So with an orange again I underline 162 times 3. So we are solving the multiplication 6, 18 and 4. So multiply by x dot y dot z. Now you cannot leave your answer in the form of dots or multiplication, right? So 486 times x, y, z. Because x times y times z is x, y, z. Right? You join all of them together. In multiplication, like and unlike terms can be multiplied or divided. In addition and subtraction, you leave it as it is. But in multiplication and division, you can join them all. There should be no signs in between. This is incomplete answer. This is your final answer. Okay? So I hope you've understood this. The main thing you have to remember is to separate the numbers and separate the letters. Solve the numbers separately, solve the letters separately. It will be much easier for you and clearer. All right? Okay, now let's go on to the next one. Let's see whether you can do it. 6m times 6m times 6m. So what do you do now? First you see whether there's any plus or minus in the sum. No, there isn't. It's all multiplication, right? So in multiplication, the first thing you have to do is separate the numbers and separate the alphabets, right? So numbers are 6, 6, and 6. Make sure you underline so you do not miss out any number or any letter. 6 times 6 times 6. I wrote it down separately, multiplied by, now letters we have m times m times m, right? So it's going to be m dot m dot m. Remember, in between the letters, you do not put a multiplication sign. Otherwise, it looks like xm, okay? Now, 6 times 6 times 6. So you can solve 2 at a time, or if you remember the cube of 6, that's, of course, nothing like it. But otherwise, you solve 2 numbers at a time, copy down the rest, and this becomes m dot m dot m, right? Now this again 36 times 6. Complete this. Find the product of 36 times 6. 6 6 are 36, and then it becomes 216. Right, so now you can join them all in this only. You can underline these together, right? Now it's multiplication, right? Multiplied by m dot m dot m. Now m occurs how many times? 3 times, right? So you write down m once to the power of 3. As I said earlier, it's just like 2 times 2 times 2. So it's 2 to the power cube, right? 2 is being multiplied 3 times. In the same way, m times m times m is m cube. You cannot leave your answer in this form, so you have to join them. 216m cube is your final answer. All right? In multiplication and division, you can multiply and divide unlike terms and like terms, both. All right? These were unlike terms that you did earlier, just before this question. So they all can join together. You can find the product of all these together and get the final answer. And here, these are like terms. You can call these like terms, right? They're all the same, so these also, of course, can multiply. But the main thing is, in multiplication and division, separate the numbers and separate the letters, okay, for clarity, and it becomes much easier also. But in addition and subtraction, you cannot add or subtract unlike terms. You can only add or subtract like terms, and those letters are just there going to follow the number. Nothing happens to those letters. They just follows the number. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Now this is probably going to be the last one. If I have time, then I'll do one more. Let's see. 3 times x times x. This is your question. Okay, so now you are going to separate the numbers and separate the letters. But there are no other numbers, so you are just going to write down the 3 alone, right? So 3 here. And now you separate the alphabets, the letters. So it's x dot x, right? Only 2 x's are here. So x dot x. And you're not missing out any letter or any number. Now 3, now multiply by, now this becomes x times x becomes, x is occurring 2 times, so x squared. You are going to multiply the letters. In addition and subtraction, x plus x becomes 2x, right? You just add up or subtract the numbers. The letter just follows. Alright, here you will not write down x squared. The letter will just follow. So better to underline what you are solving. Okay, this underlining part is just to help you. Now equals to, now you're going to join them because this is incomplete. 3x squared is your answer. Alright, so separate the numbers, separate the letters, do the underlining, solve them and then join them. Alright, now I think I still have a few more minutes left, so let's do one last question. Now suppose if I have a 12a times 6b times 2. Now I have to separate the numbers and separate the letters, right? I have a 12, I have a 6 and I have a 2, right? I write them all down together. First, write down the numbers, then write down the letters. Now A, B, right? I have a A and a B. A multiplied by B, so I put a dot B. In between the letters, you put a dot. Alright? Now this becomes what? You have to solve two numbers at a time, so your calculation is easier, faster, less chances of making mistakes. Right? So 12 6 are 72. Multiply by 2, copy down, times a dot b. So you can leave it as it is. You solve the letters at the end. First, deal with the numbers. That's better. Right? Deal with the numbers first. Now 72 times 2. Now this is what you are going to underline. Alright? Now you're going to solve it. 72 times 2 is 154. Times a dot b. Now what are you going to do? You are going to underline, right? You're going to underline the letters, and now all this can join together. 154 a b. 154 times a times b is 154 ab. Alright? In multiplication and division, unlike terms can multiply or divide. 154 is one term, a is another, b is another. They all can join. They all can be multiplied. If, for instance, if I had something like this, 154 plus a, or a plus b, or a minus b, all these are unlike terms, and unlike terms cannot add or subtract. This would have been the answer in addition and subtraction. You could not go further. But in multiplication and division, you can join all of them. You can multiply all of them. But of course, one by one. Separate the numbers, separate the letters. Solve the numbers, then slowly solve the letters. Okay, and then you'll make no mistakes. So now you have to revise all these, means go through all these, all right, and work it out. Suppose if you were working it out with me, then very good, while listening, and then you can do your homework. All right, but please try to understand all the instructions that I've given, all the things that I've told you, what to be careful about, what not to do, what to do, and then you go on to your homework. Okay? So I'll see you in the next class. Goodbye.